Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cop Council. How are we all? Hopefully, all of you are having a fantastic day, wherever you are around the world. And welcome back to another episode, but a bit different. Of course, today we're not talking about any news or anything in that regard, but we are going to be discussing the forward rebuild. Of course, we're going to be discussing players who might be in Liverpool's thought process, of course, ahead of what is most likely going to be probably the biggest summer rebuild in terms of forwards for Liverpool. Again, we've already had one type of rebuild in terms of the midfield, obviously a couple of summers ago, but now it looks more likely than ever that we're going to have the forward rebuild in the summer transfer window. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about certain players. We'll talk, of course, about any of the players you guys mentioned as well, and taking a look, of course, at data and other bits and pieces as well for, of course, Liverpool's forward line. Because let's be honest, I think realistically it needs improving, doesn't it? It needs very much a revamp. Similar to how we did a couple of years back in terms of we took obviously replaced the likes of Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, and replaced it with obviously Ryan Gravenberch, Alexis McAllister. And that was, an absolute overhaul, wasn't it, for Liverpool's midfield as well. But again, let me know how you lot are, of course, in the comments down below as well. I'd be very intrigued to know your guys' thoughts, of course. If you have any players in particular you'd like us to look at as well, of course, do leave them in the comments down below as well. And yeah, if you're new around here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and all of that good stuff. Anyway, but big up John saying, hi Con, thoughts on Semenyo from Bournemouth? A good option in my opinion. What do you think? I think he's very, very good. I think he's having one hell of a season, isn't he, at Bournemouth? Can play on the left, can play on the right, which again is a big, a big thing nowadays. I think in terms of again that versatility. We had it, didn't we, for so many years. You look at somebody like a Sadio Mane, for example, who very much could play anywhere, couldn't he? In terms of the front line, and he could play there pretty much at a standard where his lowest standard was some people's like highest standard. Sadio Mane was one of the best forwards in the world, and I think not to again call Semenyo Sadio Mane, but still you kind of know what I mean in terms of the quality, that again the versatility up top again is very, very huge for them as well. Anyway, but of course we'll be talking mainly, of course, strikers. And of course, we'll be talking slightly about left wingers as well, because I think that's a very limited window, I would say. And I think strikers, there's definitely a few names that Liverpool could entertain. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by here in terms of strikers. We could even possibly have more on the list. Obviously today I believe it was David Lynch, not David Lynch, sorry. It was David Lynch. I think it was David Lynch. I think Lewis Steele as well also put a piece out earlier, again saying it's going to be a very busy window for Liverpool, which again I think it will be. And I also think it's going to be a total revamp up front. I think adding, of course, with other key players, potentially, of course, just swifting in terms of, we could end up selling Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz, Diogo Jota, which I do think is now more likely than ever. Certainly, the last couple of games has really highlighted, if Mo Salah and Cody Gakpo are not in Liverpool's team or not firing, for example, the others, they're not necessarily stepping up to the plate. And I think that is a huge problem for Liverpool moving forward as well. So is it totally just one player that we need, in terms of just one out and out striker? I don't think so. I think there is probably more with that anyway. But big up, say this wasn't how you're doing, mate. I'm very good, thank you, mate. I hope you're doing well. Anyway, but we're going to jump straight into it then, chat. And of course, we're going to take a look, obviously, at data. We're going to take a look at FB Ref and have a look at certain key players, of course. And we're going to talk, of course, we're going to kickstart it off with Alexander Isak. Probably the number one guy, or I think, on a lot of Reds' minds, in terms of the forward area, and who Liverpool, have been linked with heavily, of course, over the last couple of weeks. obviously the Carabao Cup final week. It was non-stop, wasn't it, with the Alexander Isak discussions. But again, if we take a look at Isak's data, to be fair, and look at just how good it is realistically, of course, it is Alexander Isak. I will scroll up for you guys so you guys can see that it is Alexander Isak that I am talking about, as you guys can see on screen right now. There you go. But yeah, if we quickly scroll down. So again, obviously, this is purely data-wise on FBref. You guys can go and check this out for yourselves. Obviously, you can type any player that you want, and obviously check out the data in that ideal situation, of course. But you look at Isak's form, and you look at again this season. I think even if we scroll up to the top in terms of this 25 league games, 19 goals, 5 assists, which is just outrageous. And it is outrageously good. But again, you look at the green just in general, in terms of the chart here as well, in terms of again non-penalty goals expected, he's in the top 1% of that. Expected goals, he's in the top 89%. And even if we quickly scroll down, you can even if I quickly click that, there you go. So we can see his actions per 90, of course. If I quickly scroll back up, of course, he's creating 75.3%, obviously, pass accuracy per 90. Again, there's the creativeness as well, progressive carries, successful take-ons as well, of course. And even when we do look at other players later on, of course, we'll be able to compare this data towards them as well, because I do think there's definitely a bunch, I do believe, of players that very much are quite similar in terms of data. I think obviously Alexander Isak is definitely one player in particular. I do think there are many others as well that are very similar, just purely on data. And of course, we all know Liverpool are very much data driven in terms of their, again, obviously the scouting and everything to do with the transfer committee is to do with data. Of course, they'll have this, and they'll have, of course, a lot more than what we know towards the data as well. But I do think, again, you look at that, just the attacking output, again, shots creation, actions, again, nearly creating, a shot for himself every 3.41 in per 90 as well, which again is outrageous when you actually look at it as well. But again, as you can see there, he is in terms of just the top. When we're talking about just goals, he is in the top, again, 5%. He's in the top 6%, even in the top 2% of players. He is truly, again, the guy to go and get this summer. And I do think, of course, if Newcastle put any type of hope there is to go and get Alexander Isak this summer, I think, Liverpool, I think, will 100% be in the conversation. I think, of course, I think not only Liverpool, of course, there'll be Arsenal, there'll be teams from abroad as well. I think PSG will go for him as well. But I do think if anybody gets that slight encouragement in terms of whether or not Isak will be available at all, I think, again, I think Fabrizio Romano's even spoken about again him already having offers on the table, in terms of huge offers. Didn't specify which clubs, of course, he's already had the offers for, but again, you'd most likely suspect it's obviously Liverpool, Arsenal, PSG. Maybe there might be another team in there, maybe a Saudi club in there as well. You never know in fairness as well. But I do think for me, Alexander Isak would be the number one guy. I know pretty much, once again, strikers don't tend to, or at least high money signings don't tend to work out that great. I think if you have a look at the list in particular in terms of who has gone for over 100 million plus, there isn't a lot of good signings in that process. I think even if you go back and look at not only strikers, I think you could look at wingers, for example, as well. And of course, I do think Liverpool have the option, I think, this summer to have a massive impact on the transfer window. I do think we have the option to make a huge signing, which of course Alexander Isak would be that. Of course, somebody else who would also be that is another man that's been linked, and he, of course, is in the thumbnail in terms of Julian Alvarez. Now, I believe it was Lewis Steele, or it might have been David Ornstein today, of course, speaking on Julian Alvarez and speaking about the situation around him and saying that, again, he hasn't had any confidence from Liverpool side of things that anything will be done this summer. Again, it might just be one of these stories that, again, has come out in terms of the news around him and so on. And of course, obviously, that's been revamped, obviously, because, again, it's an international break. And of course, there's nothing really else to talk about, to be fair. But I do think, just looking at the player in terms of Julian Alvarez, I think he would fit a slot system. I generally do. And even looking at the data for him, and if you guys look on screen right now, of course, obviously goals this season, and even if you look at his statistics, again, 28 games played in La Liga, 1,817 minutes, 11 goals, 2 assists, which isn't that great when you look at it, but considering, again, he is playing all over the park for Atletico Madrid, and as well, you look at that Champions League records, again, 10 games played, 7 goals, 1 assist, of course, scoring against Real Madrid in that first leg, but of course, obviously, we all know about the penalty miss as well. But again, not somebody who, again, is ruthless. I would say, again, you look at, compared to Alexander Isak, and I think we can compare him to Alexander Isak. They are very much different strikers in that regard. Again, if we look at, if I quickly click that and look at this, again, you look at the data between the two. Again, obviously, Julian Alvarez is in the blue, Isak is in the red. And when you look at it, of course, when we're talking about potentially a false nine or kind of that player that can hold the ball up, compared to, what we currently have with Diogo Jota and in terms of Darwin Núñez, again, Julian Alvarez fits that bill, in terms of being that guy that, again, will get you goals, now and again, will get you, again, in the Premier League, he was very much the impact player for Manchester City, wasn't he? When he was a part of that squad, when he was in, that thought process of, again, playing behind Erling Haaland, and, similar to Liverpool, really, where, we've seen us operate in terms of a kind of a false striker, in terms of not having a particular forwards, and again, could that be isolated in terms of us having an Alvarez in our team, alongside a Curtis Jones or Dom Szoboszlai? Again, that could be very, very good when you look at it away from home as well. But I do think in particular as well, in terms of just, again, pass completion, progressive passes, progressive carries, again, very similar, but, Julian Alvarez does outdo that. And again, when we talk about out and out killers, in terms of up top, I think Isak is your guy when we're talking about that. I think when, Alexander Isak, him, other players that we're going to look at tonight, they are, again, they are proper strikers, if that makes sense. They're proper number 9s that, again, can do extra bits, but are also known as, being the killers up top. And I do think Alvarez is more of a version of the kind of what we had with Bobby, can do everything up front, can score, can assist, can also do the groundwork, can also press, can also again link play up in terms of playing that false 9, which again, probably when you look at Manchester City this season, they've probably missed the Julian Alvarez, and they've missed that type of player within their team. Obviously now they've brought in Marmoush, who again I think has kind of been added to that role, really. It's kind of similar to what Alvarez was. Of course, obviously he's playing on the left, I believe, for City, but still, Julian Alvarez, I think, has been a massive miss for Man City. And I think everybody had that same thought process of, oh, well, is it going to impact City that much? And I think it has. I do think it has been a really, really massive impact, I think, for Manchester City. And I think, again, obviously Atletico Madrid, they will not want to lose Julian Alvarez. Don't get that twisted. I've joked on social media in terms of, again, there's been reports obviously of Darwin Núñez going to Atletico Madrid. Again, I've made jokes about, could it be a part of a swap deal with Julian Alvarez? But again, I do think he is an outstanding player. Again, watching him in the World Cup, watching him for Man City, of course, over the years. Again, would I take him at Liverpool? Absolutely. I'd take him at Liverpool any day of the week. And looking at the stats again, in terms of again tackles in the top 12% in terms of that for a forward, which is pretty good going. And it does scream again hard worker that again would obviously easily adapt back to the Premier League, but I think you're going to be looking at possibly even Isak numbers in terms of transfer fee, because I think people do forget. One, he only moved to Atletico Madrid last summer. Of course, Liverpool were in contact with him, but of course he moved to Atletico Madrid. And second of all, look, they bought him for £91 million, I think, with add-ons included in that. So again, they'll want to make a massive profit on him. Of course, could they do that? Could Liverpool, if he is the guy, are they willing to go to 130, 140 for Julian Alvarez? I'm not so sure. I think they would probably switch their attention to maybe Alexander Isak for that. But I do think, though, as well, with me also speaking about this, it does feel like Liverpool will sign more than one striker this summer. It doesn't feel like we are just talking about, oh, maybe, we're going to just have one major forward. I do think it is a complete overhaul that Liverpool are going to do. Maybe it might not be completely an overhaul in the summer. Maybe we do make that one massive signing, and then potentially we look at the left hand side. But I do think if I was to put money on it now, myself, I would most likely say that Liverpool, are probably going to lose Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz. I think Jota it's a little bit difficult because I think for Diogo Jota, he'll want to move to a Champions League club. I don't think he'll want to, unless of course it's a sentimental move, which again Wolves have been mentioned, and that could very well be a possibility for Diogo Jota. But I do also think, judging from the words that's come out over the last couple of days, it does feel like he wants to stay at a top club, really. I don't know whether or not if that is him including Champions League football in that, or whether or not it's just mainly European football, which when you look at that, it's a very small number of teams he could go for. Could he potentially be going to Spain, in terms of, could there be a team in Spain that could look at him? Possibly, where the football is a lot different compared to the Premier League, where now Diogo Jota's body is now slowly breaking down, really. Again, his legs are gone. I would say personally, watching him over the last week against PSG and against Newcastle on Sunday, for me, I think his legs are gone. And that is just down to injuries and down to him consistently, coming back. Would have about 2-3 month really good periods, and then disappearing then for another 2-3 months, and that's probably been a consistent thing while he's been at Liverpool, I would say. But I do think it's also something that when you do look at it, I think that easily can be a problem. And we've seen it, not only with him, Robbo this season. I think his legs have gone a little bit in terms of, again, consistently playing and consistently being there, but also coming back from injury very quickly. That's also another problem, really, as well. But so he said, hopes Liverpool signing forward in the summer. Wait for good luck and for as well, breaking English. If Liverpool not win the Premier League, I will be sad for Liverpool. At 12 points clear at the top of the table into Arsenal. Go game against Fulham. Hope Fulham win the match. Good luck for that, Liverpool, as well. Be good signing Julian Alvarez for Liverpool. Go and get him in the summer. I'd love to. I'd absolutely love it if we could go and get him. I think even though possibly, I think when you do look at it, in terms of Isak and in terms of Alvarez, which one is less unlikely to happen or most likely to happen? I would probably say Isak is more likely to join Liverpool than Alvarez, personally. I just don't think Atletico would sell him, and that's maybe a blinder from me potentially, but I don't know. I really don't know. I think possibly we could see we could see that. We could see maybe Atletico, like I said, in terms of the bid, in terms of whether or not it's a 100 million plus deal. Could they then go like, oh yeah, we'll cash in now once if somebody's gonna come in for that price? But of course, would Julian Alvarez want to leave Atletico Madrid? I think that's the other question that some other people might not really ask at the moment, of course. Anyway, but obviously we'll move on from Julian Alvarez, which of course, again, let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. I'm hoping you're lying, but there, Doug. I've just seen. Oh, wait there. Oh, it's true. Oh no, for fuck's sake. Any wonder with his friggin' injuries? As I've just seen. Just fatigue and starts catching. Maybe Ryan Gravenberch is just absolutely knackered. And we did. Maybe Slot has done his magic, wand and got him off. Realistically, yeah, absolutely awful. To be fair, like Jesus Christ, it's not what you want to hear, is it? Really? Hopefully, they've just tweeted. What have they just tweeted? Yeah, Ryan Gravenberch has left the Dutch training camp this evening. The midfielder is still suffering from an injury sustained over the weekend that prevented him from playing the matches against Spain as they take care of Ryan. So maybe it's just precaution, maybe. But again, it's not great news there. Let's be honest. Endo time. I'd love it to be Wataru Endo's time, but still, I'd love Ryan Gravenberch to be fair. But look, if it is Wataru Endo, then I'd be more than happy to see that anyway. But of course, moving on to another forward, we spoke about Isak. I think this guy, Hugo Nkita, I think he is the perfect alternative to Alexander Isak. Now, I know what people might think, and they may go, "Oh, it could possibly just be one of those names when you look at it." But of course, he obviously plays in the Bundesliga. Obviously, played alongside Omar Mamouche, which of course has bumped up his statistics. I will admit that. But when you look at the data and you look at just how similar they are, so I will quickly scroll that for you guys. So this is as you can see, you can move my head out of the way. So as you can see, Hugo Nkita is there, Alexander Isak is there, and look how comparable they are. Like apart from a few statistics, like again, they're so similar. Like again, non-penalty goals, they are pretty much matching. Again, either Isak's just off of him slightly, or Hugo Nkita is one just slightly off of him. You even look at the percentage here. Obviously, this is Hugo Nkita's stats, and when you look at it, like, of course, you look at Alexander Isak, of course, natural born killer, but of course, Hugo Nkita, very much under the radar. Again, when I'm going to scroll up and you guys can see his stats now. Again, 25 games played in the Bundesliga, 13 goals, 4 assists. Obviously, Europa League, 10 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, which isn't too great. So it's like 16 goals and 7 assists in all competitions this season. And I think it does boil down to the question again of, what are Liverpool looking for? Are they looking for someone who, again, is already made, right here, right now, will be the guy for Liverpool for the next couple of years, and that would be Alexander Isak? Or are they looking for the guy that could possibly take the next step up, and kind of what it was with Darwin Núñez, really? Like, I do think, with him, of course, there is an £80 million release clause there, or buyout, I think it is, from Frankfurt. And again, are Liverpool prepared to, possibly make him the second highest transfer ever in Liverpool's history? I don't think so, and that's the problem. I don't like. I think this year Liverpool, or this summer, I don't think Liverpool would spend huge unless it's the real deal. Like, in terms of Alvarez, in terms of Isak, like they're proven. For example, we know what to expect from them. You know what they're going to be in the Premier League. Obviously, Hugo and Kita obviously has done a tremendous job at Frankfurt. Of course, former PSG player. As well, didn't work out for him there, but of course that doesn't mean anything. You look at other players that have left PSG over the recent weeks, in terms of Asensio more recently, of course, you look at how he's performed for Villa in the Premier League. And of course, if Liverpool's data matches him, and Liverpool think he's the guy that could very well be the next guy. Of course, I think Hugo Nketiah is 22, I believe he is. Which of course, look, 100%, we could definitely see him being an option for Liverpool. I would say for sure, but I would kind of put him on, like, in terms of like the tier list. Of course, Alvarez and Isak, they're S tier really. I think Hugo Nketiah, I think for me would be A tier, really, in terms of what Liverpool are looking for. Because he could 100% be the next guy, but I just think maybe it might just dip a little bit in terms of, again, number one, the price tag, and number two, can he do it in the Premier League? Again, that's the other question, realistically, which of course would cause a bit of problems as well. But I do think as well, it's also for this man, Jonathan David. I do think Jonathan David, for me at least, I do think he's definitely a guy that's going to cause a lot of conversations, I think, around in terms of just in base. I do think Jonathan David will be one for not only top teams in the Premier League. I think, teams like West Ham United, I think other teams that are looking for a striker, free transfer, that's always a massive bonus. I think I think it's going to be around, what, 120, 140,000 pound per week, which again is another great side to him. Of course, isn't going to demand a lot, of course, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if other top clubs in Europe were going to go after Jonathan David. I do think, Jonathan David this season in particular, I think has got like around like 20 plus goals, again this season, which again, I think when you look at his overall statistics this season, I think 100%, we could definitely see, him being linked with Liverpool. As you guys can see on screen right now, in terms of, again, 24 league games, 14 goals, 3 assists. The Champions League, 10 games played, 7 goals, 2 assists this season, which again, I think that is definitely, again, when you look at it, what's that, 21 goals, 5 assists in all competitions. That's pretty good going. That is really, really good going. And I do think as well, for somebody who is, just turned 25, when we talk about players taking that next step, of course, he's been in the French league now for a number of years, but it's that sense of, again, can he go that extra level? Can he take that next step up? I think that is the huge question with Jonathan David as well, which again, would I want him at Liverpool? Watching him against Lille, for Lille against Liverpool in the Champions League, he took that one opportunity, didn't he? Very, very well in our game, which again, that's obviously a big thing. But I also look at it and go, for somebody who is a free transfer in the summer, could be, when we talk about options, and when I talk about, Liverpool making that massive fee in terms of, in terms of, if we go and spend 100+ million on Alvarez or Isak, you've then got a backup in Jonathan David, who again can score you a goal, is a free transfer. And if it doesn't work out, of course, whatever you do, if you do end up selling him, you make a profit on him. And I do think it's one of those like opportunity signings that Liverpool always love to throw out. I'm not going to lie. I really do think it's something like that. But again, we'll have to wait and see in terms of Jonathan David. But I do think it would be very, very interesting to definitely see anyway. But again, let me know your guys' thoughts, of course, and let me know any players you think Liverpool should look at in, of course, the summer. But obviously, Doug saying end of the time. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, big up Jack as well, saying defo an option as well. I think that was with. I think that was before Jonathan David as well. But there was a pod on the Overlap USA Quality Watch as him on YouTube. Sky Sports Speaks. Very well level-headed as well. I'll have to check that out. Big up Cal as well. He'll be doing well. For free transfer seems to win-win for any club, even us or Rigi Sport. Could very well be. I think, of course, the one problem really is, would he want to take would you want to take a backup role, really? Again, when we talk about him taking that next step, he's probably more looking at like potentially even like a West Ham, where, of course, they need a striker. I know they've got Evan Ferguson. I think, of course, it's either, Mikel Antonio normally, of course, obviously is out injured. And, of course, they've got Danny Ings there at the moment. They all want a striker, or, teams like that will want a striker. It wouldn't even be surprising neither if a team like Brighton went for him. It's kind of that similar signing, really. But I do think it's one to keep an eye on. I think out of everyone that we're going to speak about tonight, I do think Jonathan David to Liverpool sounds very much like Liverpool and what we do, in terms of getting a player in. Because I do think what is interesting was, I think, was it Fabrizio Romano today coming out and saying that Liverpool plan, the players that are on Liverpool's list for striker was not available in January at all, and not for any price. Now, I wonder what we are talking about there. Are we talking about, again, would Jonathan David want to finish his time at Lille? Something like that. Is it something we're talking about Isak or Alvarez, in terms of price tag? Basically, it's going to, cost you like 200 million to get him out of the club at that time. Or are they talking about potentially a release clause on somebody that we don't even know yet? Similar to how it was with Ibu Kanate. You look at Ibu, we pretty much waited 6 months for him because, of course, Leipzig at the time were asking 80 plus million for him, and we waited 6 months and got him for 34 million pounds, which again was an absolute steal. So is there something like that in somebody's contract that we could potentially get a deal for? I think that's also an interesting conversation as well. But that would drive the quality in training, though, can't be any worse than Jota or Diaz or Nunes, given their record in 42 games. Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. I know plenty of people might say, like, losing Jota, losing Darwin, and losing Lucho in the same summer, that would be terrible, really. I think it would be, when we talk about rebuild, that could be a frightening position. But the one thing I'd also say towards that is look at our midfields. Our midfield went from Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, and Thiago to pretty much changing in this summer, where then it was easily McAllister, Szoboszlai, and then, obviously last season it was Wataru Endo. Ryan Gravenberch wasn't getting a chance, really. But now, of course, obviously it is Ryan Gravenberch in that. So we pretty much in a summer window, we completely changed the midfield. And of course, I think that has to be credited towards Jurgen Klopp, and how he did that. I think, again, even today, people don't really give Jurgen the credit he deserves for that, because, again, no manager, I don't think, has ever done that, really, in terms of completely changing a midfield over. Obviously, it was a lot more technical, I think, the midfield, compared to, of course, obviously, Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago. but of course their legs had gone. It was completely like, again, we were having Stefan Bajcetic come in and was pretty much the first name on the team sheet in terms of midfield for us, of course. So it's kind of that counterbalance in terms of, again, would letting everybody go be a good thing? Yes and no, really. But again, I do think, again, we already know Darwin Núñez is going to be leaving Liverpool. It's then the question of the rest. Is it going to be the case of, are we going to see Luis Diaz leave? Are we going to see Diogo Jota leave? We could 100% see both, really, couldn't we? I think that would be an interesting conversation anyway. But Jota, Núñez, Diaz, Tsimikas, Morton, Phillips, Williams, Trent out as well, possibly. Very, very possibly. I can't see Thier or Trent staying. Same. At this point, same. Sadly, anyway. But obviously, another name we did have on the list. This is the one where I think it's completely, again, I'm not even going to pull his data up because I just don't think Liverpool are going to go for that. I genuinely don't. I've seen. I was, looking on social media. I was looking everywhere, and obviously, I've seen a lot of people suggested why don't Liverpool go after Victor Osimhen in the summer? Because, of course, I think Napoli, I think they're going to sell him at a cut price. But he screams Chelsea, and he does. But he also screams failure or flop. And that might be harsh. And look, watch whoever he signs for, fans will clip this up and go, oh, look what this person said. At the end of the day, Liverpool, I don't think, again, between him and Darwin Núñez, I don't think there's much difference, in terms of styles. But I think Victor Osimhen, for me at least, I wouldn't want him at the club. Really, I think attitude-wise, obviously, what happened at Napoli, it went south, didn't it? Really, but I also think as well, I just wouldn't want Victor Osimhen at Liverpool. There's something off about that. As well. And to be fair, Jack, I've not put Victor Gyökeres in this list either. And I know obviously Ricky's going to be fuming with me saying that as well. But yeah, I've not put Victor Gyökeres in this list. Just purely because I don't think Liverpool are going to go for it. I know obviously he's done it in the Championship. He's done it now in of course, the Portuguese League. We know how Liverpool like to look at the Portuguese League. But I just don't see Liverpool going for Victor Gyökeres either. I think he, of course, would obviously, Man United, obviously the Amorim links. I think Arsenal, with Gyökeres, I really do. I think that makes more sense, really, because you look at their team, you look at what they're missing. I think Gyökeres fits the bill at Arsenal more than Liverpool. I think if we're being honest, I think Liverpool are looking for more. I kind of think Liverpool are looking at more at having two different type of strikers at the club. I think we're kind of looking at, similar to how Diaz and Jota, not Diaz, sorry, Darwin and Jota, they're very similar. They are different in many ways. I think Jota can hold the ball up probably a bit more than Darwin at times, but I also think, again, they're very similar players in terms of obviously the counter press and in terms of, again, their standard. But I do think Liverpool are kind of looking at maybe two different ones. This is why I think, if Julian Alvarez is available, I think we are more likely to go for, a big deal in getting him done, or somebody like a João Pedro, for example, who would be a false nine. But then you've also got somebody then at the club that can be that out-and-out striker if you need him to be. Similar to what we had at the club. We had Bobby Firmino, who could do everything, but we also had Divock Origi, who could come on and be a striker, be the out-and-out output, and not kind of be the link-up false nine like you would with a Mo Salah, or you would be, creating space for a Sadio Mane, for example. Liverpool would have an out-and-out striker who, again, they would go and force everything through him, similar to like how Mo Salah this season, when you look at the, I think was it Opta in terms of important passes, I think Mo Salah's ball across the box, that was very much a common passing position from Liverpool side of things. So again, when we talk about Liverpool having an out-and-out number 9 and an actual killer, you look at the creative force. Of course, Liverpool could have scored a lot more goals this season if they'd had the right person up top. And I think if you had probably a fully fit Diogo Jota, I think you could you could 100% get a Diogo Jota in that conversation. But that is the problem. And at the minute, look, Diogo Jota isn't fit. He's nowhere near it. And like we said, the injuries have slowly caught up to him, which is a shame, really. And look, I do think in terms of Victor Gyökeres and Victor Osimhen, I don't think they're the right people for Liverpool. Anyway, but when we talk, of course, before we do shoot off, anyway, we talk about the left wing position. I said this is a forward rebuild. And I don't know about you guys, but I can only see two names really. When we talk about quality, and of course, there's probably other names that Liverpool are looking at the moment. I think Jamie Gittins, I think from Dortmund, that's definitely somebody who Liverpool are definitely keeping an eye on. But I just think it's in terms of quality, I don't know whether or not if again Liverpool would go big for certain players, but the only players I thought of when we spoke about the left wing position, number one was Anthony Gordon, and also with that was Rafael Leao. I think Rafael Leao, a lot of Liverpool supporters I've seen on social media saying they would love, they'd love Liverpool to spend 70, 80 million on Rafael Leao. And I look at it and I kind of disagree with it really. And even with Anthony Gordon, we're talking over 100 million plus, which that's unrealistic in itself. But I do think out of these two, we talk about Leao and we talk about Anthony Gordon, I think Leao is more likely, and that's probably mad for me to say that, considering again he's got a 175 million pound release clause, which again, Liverpool are not going to activate that, but supposedly AC Milan need cash, they need money, because of course they're not going to be getting Champions League football by the looks of things anyway, which of course that is a huge problem for them. But again, would that then allow Liverpool to be able to go in and get a Rafael Leao? I'm not so sure it would, but I do think it's definitely a conversation, of course, because I think when you look at left wingers or left-sided forwards, in terms of quality, in terms of Europe, it's not really there, is it, realistically? But I'll quickly get up his data now for you guys. But of course, when we look at Rafael Leao, so obviously this is the Italian league as well. But when you actually look at it, it's, when we talk about a winger, for example, it's very good going, when we do look at it, of course. And he is probably the best winger in the league, you'd most likely say, in terms of maybe, Lookman as well is obviously up there. But you look at it, obviously non-penalty goals, he's in the top 77 percentile. Non-penalty XG, he's up there in terms of the top 10% for it. But even still, successful take-ons as well, which I think Liverpool have struggled with as well in terms of having a player like that. Like Gakpo does it a lot, but Luis Diaz, he struggles with it a little bit, doesn't he? Really. But again, you look at just overall, again, shots action created 4.44, which was more than Alexander Isak, to be fair. But again, you look at very attacking wise, progressive carries, successful take-ons, progressive passes as well as quite high, as well as you can see, in terms of the stats, in terms of, again, touches in the penalty box, again, likes to get at the defense, and also in terms of aerial duels won, quite high up as well for Rafael Leao, which of course, there'll be plenty of people that will have different conversations around that, because again, I do think it's an unrealistic signing, isn't it? And as Chuck said there, need a Mane level signing, and would Rafael Leao be that guy for Liverpool? Probably, I would say most likely. But I do think as well, I do think the quality in Europe is kind of a bit down, really. I, I, I don't think it's necessarily something that you look at it and go, is something there in terms of, can Liao be a Liverpool player? Yeah, of course he can. But of course, it's going to cost an arm and a leg. And can Liverpool sign a proper number 9 while also having Rafael Leao in that conversation? I'm not necessarily sure. But in terms of left wingers, again, there is probably in the data charts, there is probably somebody out there that Liverpool are looking at the moment that we're not even talking about. But I do think it's something that I think Liverpool have got a better chance of signing the right striker than the right left forward at the minute. Because it's at the moment it is very much the case of it's very rare to get a top level signing in that position. Anyway, but no, absolutely not. Anyway, but hopefully doing well. Anyway, but no, the only person I know that plays for Wrexham is what's his name? Not Ben Taylor. He'll come to me now. Big up Reds. Have to watch this back as I'm late as well. No worry, Lee. Hopefully doing well, mate. Anyway, but look again. Let me know your guys' thoughts anyway that we've mentioned in tonight's episode. As of course, I do think it's a very interesting conversation to have because I do think, of course, there is a lot more in-depth stuff as well, in terms of, again, players we've not really spoken about. Again, I know obviously Jack mentioned, in terms of players, Victor Gyökeres and João Pedro, and of course there's obviously the Belgium striker, I believe, at Atalanta. He's another guy I think Liverpool might be looking at that we didn't really take a look at tonight. But I think in an overall sense, in terms of when we talk about Liverpool making huge signings in terms of the striker position, left wing position, I absolutely do believe Liverpool are going to do something this season where I think we're going to be ruthless. We're currently hoping, obviously, with contracts and currently wondering whether or not some things are going to happen there or not. But I do think in terms of, again, the rest of them, like I think this international break, you always hear stuff's happening. This is the international break that, again, you kind of know who you're going for. This time last year, we knew relatively well that we're going to go and get Alexis McAllister. And obviously, we didn't know about Dom at that point. But the last couple of seasons, we knew about Ibu around now that he was the guy that Liverpool were looking at. We knew, this time last year, or this time, 2 seasons ago, I should say, that Liverpool were going to go and get Alexis McAllister. We kind of will get something now, I think, in the next week of a player that Liverpool are going to go for. We kind of already had it in terms of Milos Kerkez. And of course, all the Liverpool journals are coming out and saying like he's the guy that we want. And I think, look, that is 100% true. But I also think it's something where Liverpool, there will be a random name that comes out that people will kind of go, are we linked to him? And then it'll start to have a proper momentum to it, of course. But look, at the end of the day, I do think that we will be ruthless in the summer. I do think we will, do a lot of business this summer. I do. But then again, I think a lot of teams will do a lot of business. I think we'll do business. Arsenal, City, of course, the rest of the Premier League will do it as well. And wouldn't be too surprised if there were some big moves in Europe as well, to be fair as well. But look, Edison still linked. No, absolutely not. Anyway, but Kerkez and Hato for left back as well. Yeah, I think that's the realistic target. I wouldn't be too surprised if we signed both. Really, again, I know obviously Robbo's at the club, but I do think the idea around it is Kerkez is the Andy Robertson long-term replacement. Hato can be the hybrid signing, really. Somebody who can play as a centre back can also play as a left back. It makes a lot of sense, really, for Liverpool to do those types of deals, which I think we'll end up doing. I think we'll end up getting Kerkez and potentially Hato, if, of course, the deal makes sense, really. But I think with Kerkez, I think it's more the interesting point of if Bournemouth get European football, because if they were to get Champions League football, that price tag is going up for Kirkes. It's not going down, really. But I do think it is very much the sense that one of them two at least will sign for Liverpool this summer as a left back option, 100%. I would agree with that anyway. If anybody said that, people are overreacting about Edwards and Hughes. Patience will be key. We will sign players. Yes and no, really. I do think it's very much the case of, like, in terms of players coming in the door, 100% I would agree. In terms of the players we already have at the football club that we're not re-signing, that's the point where I kind of disagree with it, where it's like, hurry the F up. Like, again, the whole Van Dijk story that came out from Sam Maguire, the whole, there'll probably be stories about Salah, again, and, in the next couple of weeks. Again, I want these players done. I want the contract signed, as soon as it's announced. And again, the perfect scenario would be for Liverpool is when international break is over, they announce it. They announce Virgil, they announce Mo, one of them, and nobody hears of it. All of a sudden, bam, it's Mo Salah in front of a camera and saying he's re-signed, or Virgil van Dijk as well. Because again, I think everybody agrees we don't think Trent's going to re-sign. I don't think Trent's going to re-sign, unfortunately. But I was on about signing. Oh, there we go. But even still, signings, absolutely agree. I think Liverpool will be very active very quickly in the window, as well. Which I think people will. The problem is with that though as well, people will overreact very quickly because Liverpool will do all their business very early, and then when teams are making signings left, right, and centre, and Liverpool think they're done in the window, everyone will be like, "Oh, why aren't Liverpool doing any more business? Why aren't this? Why aren't that?" Like, that's what's going to happen. Because I don't foresee the same type of summer as last year where Zubimendi was dragged on for 2 weeks. I very much think Liverpool are going to be very proactive in this transfer window. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, but look, hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of the evenings anyway. Yes, class over there, Gravmish injured. I seen an we'll have a video up as well when I end the show. I'll also record something now, so there will be a Gravenberch video on the channel, probably about 10:30. For you guys anyway, so obviously make sure you check that video out anyway. But look, hopefully you have a fantastic rest of the evenings anyway. What day is it tomorrow? Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow with a news episode tomorrow. I think 100% we'll have a bit of news anyway regarding certain players anyway. But Zane says, I think the attack and defense obviously the priority. Just hope we sign a midfielder as well. Yeah, I would agree. Angelo Stella is the name I'm going to go for. That's what I think Liverpool will get in midfield anyway, but I could be 100% wrong, of course. But look, we'll have to wait and see, won't we, anyway? But look, hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your evenings anyway. Like I said, I'll be live tomorrow for another news episode as well. If there's any bits of news, of course, it'll be on the channel. Anyway, so if you are new around here, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because we are on the road to 2K. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Anyway, but until then, I've been Connor from the Co Council. I'll see you guys in a bit. Ta-ra.